Alrighty, laptop is plugged in. I mean, I love this laptop, but it's got a 1060 in it for video card, and boy, it'll eat some serious battery life. Which is fine. It's really only made for, being able to do some VR on the go. I like to bring out Medium to places and let people try it. So right back into what we were talking about here. We were left off on the weight painting. So now that we don't have to do as much weight painting, we can kind of get in the business of starting to animate some stuff. This is looking pretty good. So let's start by moving the fingers. Now, it might be tempting to go ahead and try to animate just these bones. First, I'm going to stop weight painting. So you could come in here and start grabbing these things and trying to like animate individual pieces, but I highly recommend not doing this. I'm just going to show it real quick to talk about why you don't want to do this. So you could come in here and try to bend that there. And then you could come in here and try to bend this over here. And it kind of works, but take a look at these values under transform. They're all over the place. If I undo that, they're still all over the place. And I undo this one up here. Basically, this is a mess. There's an easier way to do this. So over here under the rigging panel, we have some options. So the first option is create an IK controller. Better shown than explained, I think. If you click this on the end of the bone chain, and I'm going to readjust this so we can, let's actually prep this a little bit. So what we're going to do now is get into building these controls. So I'm switching back to wireframe so I can see it. Each of these fingers, I want to have an IK controller so I can move them more easily. Now watch this. If I take this bone and just move it as is, not getting a lot of stuff done here. These things are just kind of doing the best they can, but they look like garbage, flat out. So to not make them garbage, click on the end of the chain, and we're going to create an IK controller. Now this control is going to be extremely large at first. So I suggest adjusting it off the bat. I usually drop it down till it's pretty tiny. 0.2 is going to do in this case, and that's right on the IK controller property there. But once that's in there, you move the finger, you can see we're getting all sorts of action now. We're getting the IK effect where you can see this joint is bending relative to this top. And down here, this is kind of staying stationary. So we're getting some kind of nice effects going on. So the thing to notice too is that this thing that popped up here, this circular whatever, is called the pole. And let me show you what that does. So if you've got an IK controller, I suggest just trying this for fun. Bend that, and then try moving this. And look what it does to that finger. It's going to control the angle at which the bend happens. I mean, it's a very, very handy thing. Alright, so Control Zing my way back to the beginning. I am going to create an IK controller for each of these fingers first. And it's done by clicking the bone, click IK controller, and then drop the handle down. And then give it a little test to see if it moves. That's moving. So we don't care if it's moving accurate yet. We just want the ballpark to look right, like the IK controller is working. So IK controller, drop it down, and then try it out. Yeah, see, we've got movement on both of those major bones right there. And that's what we're looking for. So guess what we're going to do here? IK controller, we're going to drop it down, and we're going to test it. Alright, that's looking good. Now, see this popped up over here in the console, this little red message? It's basically saying, look, your transform is not supposed to go that far. That is just wacky. It's okay, because we're not trying to do that intentionally. So as long as you're within like a reasonable range here, it's not going to throw any errors at you. But as soon as you start going like way out and overboard past the IK, it'll let you know. So keep an eye on that, but don't sweat it too much yet. Okay, same thing for the last bone. Create IK controller. Drop the size of the handle down to something reasonable. And test. Alright, so we have movement on all the fingers. Now you'll notice these bases are not moving yet, and that's okay. We're going to do that with a different controller. So let's get into that right now. So let's say I want this whole bottom of the finger to rotate a little bit as the fingers come in. But since this is the skeleton, this is more relative to these bones here that are under your skin. So they don't move that much, but they look weird if they don't move at all. So we're going to add just a little rotation to each one of them. So the tool for that one, with the bone selected, is called the orient control. So the orient control is a control that also starts out very large. So we'll drop it, 2, 2, 2, and I'll show you, and then we'll talk about it. So the orient control works like this. You can rotate this bone, but you cannot translate it. That doesn't do anything with this control. Whereas, if you want to go with the parent control, same kind of process, creates that. You can now do the rotation of the object. Oops, sorry, let me grab something here. I went and plugged a mouse in. Try to make this easier. So, right, you can do this rotation, but you can also do translation, which looks like bloody hell for this application. So we don't need that. We need the orient controller because we just want them to flex. So this is actually still kind of large. I'm going to drop this down to more like a 0.1. And I suggest doing this early on too, because you want to keep this clean. If these little controls get large, it's going to look like a mess. You're not even going to want to work on it. So keep them clean off the rip. This thing, same thing, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, and test. So it's this process of like create the control, set the control setting, and then test to make sure it's actually moving. Now, you may notice that this has got some kind of weirdness going on that we don't want, but we will address that later. Right now, we're just trying to set up basic controls. So guess what? Same process right here. We're going to create an orient control. I'm going to drop the handle down, and we'll test it. Yep, that's working. Same thing here. Create orient controller. Yep, that looks good. And I'm hitting Control Z to bring it back. I mean, you probably know that, but there it is. So then create orient controller. Same thing here. I'm going to drop this down to 0.1. Oops, 0.1, 0.1. And we'll test the rotation. Looks good. All right, so now we have the basic parts in place. Notice I'm not doing anything for these bones down there. You can, but I don't need to in this case. Alrighty, so this is actually a pretty good spot to stop at. This is the completion of setting up the controls we're going to use to create the animation. Notice it created a bunch of stuff in the hierarchy. We'll go over that just briefly. For example, this is the control group. If you were to move the control group, you get such an effect. Inside of that is the individual control. You get the same effect. And then you've got the pole that's in there too. So the pole comes in a pole group and individual pole. It's the movement of the control and the pole that do most of the work. The actual group themselves come in handy if you need to parent this to another object. I'm a little confused about that process. There is a tutorial on the official Puppet3d channel under rigging that does explain that subtlety a bit better. So check that out if you want more information about that part. I'm going to stop the video here. When we come back, we're going to get into doing some basic animation with this stuff. So we'll catch you on the other side. Usual YouTube business. Please like, please subscribe. Tell your friends, get your friends and family to buy 100 copies of this free tutorial. We have to work on the marketing. All right, see you on the other side.